You're listening to Saturday Morning Media. And now, back to our show. Here we go.
Hello, friends, and welcome back to another episode of the Grant Cast. My name is Grant Baciocco. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for downloading. Thank you for, caring. Hi, it is Monday, November 4th, 2024, and it is a pleasure to talk to you once again. Big shout out to all of the Saturday Morning Media Patreon patrons, without whom you would not hear these episodes because there would just be no support. And so very appreciative to all the Patreon people. And you'll hear more about that at the very end of the show. Well, as I said, today is Monday, November 4th. You're not going to hear any election stuff from me, except for me saying that. We're just going to continue on with other things. Early this morning, at the time of this recording, you'll be hearing it much later, I finished the Late Night with Chucky show that I was doing at Universal Studios as part of their Halloween Horror Nights. And I got a little emotional for the last show because this was a fun project. This was a fun project, and it was a project that I loved going to work. And I said this to my wife, and I said this to Russ, that it was nice to work on a project that didn't infuriate me in some way. And not every project does that. And I know that getting upset with things is something that's a flaw that I have. But this show didn't upset me at all. And there were frustrations, along the way, but it never made me mad. And it was a joy to go to work, and it was a joy to be around funny people and people who were excited to do the job. And we just had a great time. I'm not going to spend too much time talking about this, but I was flabbergasted last night where we have, before each night, we'll have a meeting where they just talk about the attendance, if there's anything that has come up, like, this is not working correctly, or please expect this when this happens, or tonight we're going to have these folks are going to come through, and so we're going to have a special show for them, or whatever it is. We have this little meeting up in front, and last night they gave out awards because it was the final night, and I did not know that this happened, and it shocked me, but they were giving out some awards, and then there was an award for Scare Actor of the Year. It was presented to me, and it was a shock, and I was literally speechless because I didn't know this was happening, and then all of a sudden it was like, here, you get a plaque, and you get the certificate, and congratulations, and it was extremely nice. And then as I rotated in to do the first show, I got very emotional. And at one point I was like, I didn't say this out loud, but in my head I was like, okay, Chucky can't cry. Chucky is not a crier. So you cannot cry. You have to be Chucky. So after Chucky paused a little bit in what he was saying, and then he continued. But I'm going to miss that show. If it comes back next year, there's absolutely no guarantees that I would be involved. There's no guarantees that it's going to come back next year. And there's absolutely no guarantees that if it did come back, I would be involved, because you have to re-audition for everything again. But I will very much treasure these past couple months getting to do this show because it was a lot of fun, and it was just the perfect intersection of all my favorite things: puppetry, improv, and live performance. And I've always said that is my thing, and this was one of the greatest things. And then to get this recognition at the end was just amazing. So I'm very excited. I have already made plans to meet up with, create with some of the people that I've worked with during this project. So I'm very excited for that. And so there you go. Another thing I wanted to touch on briefly is I'm recording this on November 4th, 2024. And in 3 days from this recording, it will be the 20th anniversary of the Radio Adventures of Dr. Floyd podcast. We started the Radio Adventures of Dr. Floyd in April of 2004. And then I believe it was the end of September. It must have been like early October. I read an article online, I believe in Wired, about podcasting. And I started looking into it a little bit more and was like, wow, this is the perfect medium for the Radio Adventures of Dr. Floyd. And so it became. Since last year at this time, I said, well, you know what, I should do a special episode of the Radio Adventures of Dr. Floyd, write something and put it out for this. And it's not going to happen. I don't even know what I can do in the 3 days left. Not even barring the fact that I haven't spoken to Doug in probably close to a decade, maybe a little less than. No, probably pretty close to a decade. Maybe there was an email exchange or something there too. So I was trying to think of ways like how could I do it without perhaps Dr. Floyd, which I don't think you could do the Radio Adventures of Dr. Floyd without Dr. Floyd. So and then, should I reach out? Would he even be interested in recording something? I don't know. Could I use like archival lines from old shows and put them in there? So there's not going to be anything. Maybe for the 25th, if I start working now, I can have something planned for the 25th anniversary. But, that started me on my podcasting journey is figuring out how to do that. And I know every podcaster from back then says this. We were hand coding our RSS feed, and things have come a long way. And now everybody can do a podcast, and it's great. But yeah, a lot of memories of those early days and figuring out podcasting and making sure that your episode went out. And podcasting has been very, very good to me, to steal a phrase. So, just wanted to, I didn't want it to, I will probably post a picture or come up with some sort of artwork or something to post on the day for Dr. Floyd. But my plans for a new episode were not going to happen. There you go. Dr. Floyd, 20 years. I wanted to talk about something, I have been working this late night with Chucky job, which is also part of the reason why there hasn't been a Dr. Floyd episode, because during the days I'm just exhausted because we work usually. If I got out early, it would be like at 1:30 a.m. And by getting out means I returned my costume. My costume, I wasn't dressed like Chucky. My costume was Puppeteer Blacks. Return the costume back to the costume area, and then walk from, which I already talked about in the last episode, walk from the employee entrance down to the Frankenstein parking lot, or race, as the case may be. So by the time I get home, it's 2:15, 2:30. And then by the time I've brushed my teeth and all that stuff and gotten into bed, it's 3:30. So I'm usually exhausted during the day, but I cannot just get into bed and just instantly fall asleep. I, of course, have to, we live in a modern era. I have to look at my iPad, right? I have to look at check mail, look at Instagram. I think I talked about on a previous episode how I don't have social media accounts on the phone that I take with me out of the house. So checking my personal Instagram, checking personal things like that while I'm out and about does not happen. So I do that. And then recently I have been watching Fernwood Tonight on YouTube because of the passing of Martin Mull. I was like, I've never watched this. So I've started watching Fernwood Tonight. So usually that's what I'll watch when I fall asleep. But I have this app on my iPad, and I forgot that I think I downloaded a long time ago because I was interested in shortwave radio and listening to shortwave radio and just exploring it, just seeing what, kind of like how I explored podcasting, exploring shortwave radio and just seeing what is out there and what people are doing on it. It's sort of a dying medium, but I downloaded this app called Radio Garden. I am 99% sure that is the name of the app. I'm quickly looking it up so I can double check it. But what this app does is, this app is kind of this fun, it's almost like Google Earth. Like when you open up this app, it looks like Google Earth, and you rotate the globe around, and there's all these little dots all over the globe, and each one of those dots is a city, or there's some place where there is a radio broadcast. Basically what you're doing, it's a graphical interface for listening to streaming audio. So like if there's a radio station that they also broadcast over the internet, they'll be listed in this app. But it does it in a graphical way, so you can kind of navigate around the world and find radio stations to listen to. And there's something magical about that, especially late at night. I don't know exactly what it is. The first place I look when I open this app usually is Klamath Falls, Oregon, which is where I have family living in Klamath Falls, Oregon. And there's like 6 or 7 radio stations, I think, that are listed in this Radio Garden app. And I just kind of go through and I listen. But then as I'm listening, like the main station is like classic rock. So it'll be Journey or Styx or something like that. And something in my head when I click into one of those stations, because I've been to Klamath Falls and I've driven around Klamath Falls, I go, okay, it's 3 a.m. This is the song that's playing. Where is this playing in Klamath Falls? Like, who's listening to this right now in Klamath Falls? My family is probably all in bed, so it is not them. But who is listening to this right now? And then I'll go to the other station, and there's a super, super conservative station. And it's like, okay, well, who's listening to this? And then, there's like I guess a modern top 40, station like that. So like, who's listening to that? But then then I go up into Canada, and it's like, okay, what are these stations up at Canada? And then, I found a station sort of on the eastern portion of Canada, but way, way, way up north. You're like, using the graphical interface, you're like, oh, what's the northernmost station that's broadcasting something? And I found a station that was way north in eastern Canada that was playing like old-time radio shows, like Dragnet, and then going over to Europe and seeing what's playing over there. And it's just, there's something, I don't listen to the radio. Very rarely will I listen to the radio in the car. I'm listening to podcasts or I'm listening to my own music. I don't surf the radio. I don't dial in the radio and listen to it really ever. And as a kid, I would listen to the radio. I had like my favorite station that I would listen to. And then Sunday nights, this kind of reminds me a little bit of this. I would lie in bed and listen to Dr. Demento over my headphones in the night. So that was fun, but I wasn't somebody who would like surf the radio, like dial up and down the dials looking for something to listen to tune in. But I kind of do it with this app. And there's, as I said, I know I keep saying this, I think this is the 3rd time I've said it. There's something magical about doing that at night, because my mind just starts to wonder, who's listening to this in that city right now? It's a city I've never been to this, northeastern Canadian town, but who's listening to Dragnet in this town? And, a lot of these are streaming radio stations, but I think they all are kind of, to be listed on this app, you have to have a broadcast as well. So it's not just if you have a streaming station, you're on this app. So if you're interested in that, if that sounds interesting to you, I would definitely check it out, because I don't know, there's something, as I said, I'm going to say it a 4th time, there's something magical about it. Speaking of magic, a couple weeks ago, I got to work on a short film. This film is called The Land of Nod. It is a student film, and I had a great time doing this. It was a puppet character that I did, and I just loved it. It was a lot of fun to work on. And let me tell you something. This was, and I said this, I told them this, this was a student production. These are college students. And if I say the word kid, I'm not saying that in a demeaning way. I'm saying that because these are college students and I'm 50 years old. So they are younger than me. And please, if any of them happen to stumble upon this and they're listening to it, I'm not saying kid disrespectfully. If I say that, I'm going to try not to say it. But if it happens to come out, that's what I'm saying. These students are so good. And this was like working on a professional movie set. And I did a lot of comparing them to myself in college. And in college, I was screwing around. Like, yeah, I was studying theater. Yeah, I was having fun working at Disneyland. Yeah, I was studying or hanging out in the dorms or whatever it is. But if there had been a class like this, I just feel that I would be a million times more ahead in the entertainment industry than I am. And having been very, very fortunate enough to work on television sets and movie sets, this set was more professional than some of the sets I've worked in. And there were several people who were doing their jobs, and I could just be like, you are going to make it if you want to keep going in this industry, you're going to make it because you are doing exactly what I have seen the professionals do. And in some cases, you're doing it even better. You have more dedication. I am very excited to see the finished product. The film is The Land of Nod. I will put a link in the show notes to the Instagram account. You can see some of the little bit of the puppet character that I did there. And the movie is going to premiere in December, and I'm super excited to see it. They have an amazing setup at this college. It's Biola University. I did not know going in that it was a Catholic university. I believe it's Catholic. I always get Catholic and Christian confused. So again, my apologies. I think it's Catholic. And so prayer is a very big part of the community there. And I appreciate that as somebody who grew up going to Catholic school. I do appreciate that. And I did not know that going in. And there's no big deal about it. It was just like working on a movie set. Yeah, so I'm just relating my experience. It was a lot of fun. I wasn't nervous at all. I was, at the time, I think I might have talked about this before. I actually auditioned for The Land of Nod and Late Night with Chucky on the same day because both of those auditions came through the Los Angeles Guild of Puppetry's email. And so I set up to do the Chucky audition, and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do an audition for this Land of Nod too. And then I got the callbacks for Late Night with Chucky, but they didn't tell me whether or not I was cast or not. And then Land of Nod reached out to me, and they were like, we want you to be cast in this, and you have a week to tell us. And I was like, okay, I got to wait and see what if Universal calls during this week, you know, and I couldn't figure out any way to kind of figure out if Chucky was going to happen. So finally, I just said, I was like, you know what? I don't want to be in a position where I'm doing nothing this fall. Like if I tell Land of Nod, no, I'm sorry, I can't do it, and then I don't get Chucky, then I am doing nothing. I'm just sitting around and I've missed out on 2 fun projects to work on. So I said yes to Land of Nod. And then, of course, I think I told them on a Thursday night. And then absolutely, of course, 1 week later, Universal calls me and says, we'd like you to be Chucky. Are you interested in being Chucky? And I said, yes, but now I have these conflicts. And they said, okay, we'll look into this. And luckily, gratefully, I was very happy to be able to do both. But anyway, here's the story I wanted to tell. I'm not going to give too much of the plot away, but there was I'm going to finish on this story. So I've been rambling, I can see, for a bit. Here's what happened. There was a shot where my character, he runs and gets smacked into a wall and kind of knocks himself out. And so they wanted to do a shot looking down on him as he's there unconscious, and then this other character tickles him to wake him up. He's like the cute little, very, very Fraggle-esque type of character. And so he gets tickled to wake up, and then he laughs and wakes up, and then he stands up and he's fine. So they wanted to do a shot where he was laying down going, and then the hands come in and tickle him, and then he starts laughing, and he's like, all right, stop it. And then he stands up. So this is not major spoilers in this film, but that's what happens. So the way they shot this was they just pointed the camera towards the ground, and I laid down on the ground, and I was puppeteering it. And we did a couple takes. And then I don't think it was a direction, but they were like, oh, really, really laugh, and then start saying like, stop it, stop it, stop it, and then stand up. So I really I was like really laughing, whatever the laugh I was doing. And friends, I farted. You heard me correctly. I farted. But I was still laughing, but I obviously farted. And I said, excuse me. But if you're a 50-year-old man and you fart in a room full of college students, nobody mentioned it. I, of course, now weeks later am still lying awake at night, scrolling radio stations, mortified. But there you go. But that, hey, everybody farts, right? Isn't that a book of some sort? And sometimes when you're laying on the ground and you've had a nice lunch that's provided by craft services and you start laughing really, really hard, sometimes you fart. Maybe that'll be the title for this episode. I don't think it will be because I want it to be a surprise. Friends, thank you so much for listening to the Grantcast. I appreciate it. Check out the show notes for links to everything here. I will talk to you very, very soon with another episode. I appreciate your patronage, and I will find you surfing the radio stations late at night. Bye, everybody. This episode of the Grantcast was edited by Stephen Staver and was made possible by the Saturday Morning Media Patreon patrons who've gone to patreon.com/Saturday Morning Media and set up a pledge for as little as $1 a month. Patrons at the behind-the-scenes level and above get access to a video of the recording of these episodes. Big shout-out to all of our patrons, and a special shout-out to our patron producers, Eve Cunning, Kathy Crawford, Tony Urbano, Brandy, David Akers, Paul, Scott Armstrong, Vicky Sebring, Ricky Chavez, Karina, Jeff Toro, and Lee Thompson. If you'd like to become a patron and receive episodes of the Grantcast before they are released, visit patreon.com/Saturday Morning Media and set up your monthly pledge today. And thank you for your support. This episode of the Grantcast is copyright 2024 Saturday Morning Media Grant Baciocco, executive producer, all rights reserved. www.saturdaymorningmedia.com.
You've been listening to Saturday Morning Media. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.